The HFY warships moved through space like a dark cloud of death. 5,000 ships stretched across the void, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. Admiral Zekthara stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the small blue planet grow larger on the viewing screen. Earth looked so peaceful from this distance. Soon it would burn. "My lord," his second-in-command spoke quietly. "The human fleet is gathering near their moon." Zekthara laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 300 ships against 5,000. These humans are either very brave or very stupid. The HFY had been conquering worlds for over 200 years. They had destroyed 47 different civilizations. Some begged for mercy. Some tried to fight. All of them died or became slaves. Earth would be no different. 6 months ago, the first meeting between humans and HFY had gone wrong. The HFY demanded Earth surrender immediately. They wanted humans to become workers in their empire. When the humans said no, war became certain. The HFY had never been told no before. Captain Jake Morrison walked across the bridge of the U.S. Defiance. His ship was the biggest in the human fleet, but it looked like a toy next to the alien warships. Jake was 45 years old and had been fighting in space for 20 years. He had never seen anything like what was coming toward Earth. "Captain," Lieutenant Amy Carter called from her station. "We have messages from all our fleet commanders." Jake nodded. "Put them through." The screen showed Admiral Rodriguez from the Yorktown. His face was serious but calm. "All ships in the American fleet are ready, Jake. We know what we have to do." Commander Lisa Park appeared next. She commanded the European ships. "The people back home are counting on us. We will not let them down." Captain Chun Wei of the Asian Alliance spoke last. "My fleet is holding the second line of defense. If any enemy ships get past you, we will stop them." Jake looked at each of their faces. These were good people. They had families back on Earth. Children who were probably scared right now. Parents who were watching the news and praying their sons and daughters would come home. "Listen to me, all of you," Jake said slowly. "The enemy thinks we are weak because we are few. They think we will run away when we see how big their fleet is. They are wrong." Amy Carter was checking her instruments. She was only 24. Years old, fresh from the Space Academy. This was her first real battle. "Captain, the alien fleet will reach us in 6 hours." Jake walked to the big window at the front of the bridge. Earth was behind them, a beautiful blue and white ball floating in the darkness. Somewhere down there, his wife Susan was probably watching their son play in the backyard. She did not know if she would ever see Jake again. The HFY had studied human history before coming to Earth. They read about human wars and laughed. Humans fought with primitive weapons. They killed each other over small pieces of land. Their ships were slow and weak. How could such a divided species possibly stand against the mighty HFY Empire? But the aliens had missed something important in their studies. They did not understand what happened when humans stopped fighting each other and started fighting together. They did not know about the sleeping giant they were about to wake up. Commander Ryan Brooks was getting his fighter squadron ready in the ship's hangar bay. His 12 pilots were young and nervous. They had trained for years, but training was different from real combat. "Listen up, Razor Squadron," Ryan said to his pilots. "Our job is to hit their big command ships first. We are small and fast. They are big and slow. Use that against them." Pilot Danny Garcia raised his hand. "Sir, what if we do not make it back?" Ryan looked at the young man. Danny was 19 years old. He should be in college, not getting ready to die in space. "Then we make sure they remember us. We make them pay for every inch of space between here and Earth." Back on Earth, people were getting ready for war. In every city, in every town, humans were preparing to fight. They had seen what happened to other worlds the HFY conquered. The aliens did not just take over planets. They destroyed everything that made those civilizations special. Colonel Danny Wright was deep underground in Colorado, running the defense of North America. Thousands of soldiers were waiting for his orders. Regular people were joining the military every hour. Farmers, teachers, doctors, and students all wanted to fight for their home. "Sir," his aide said, "the president wants to know if you need anything else." Danny shook his head. "We have everything we need. The question is whether we have enough time to use it." On the moon, human workers were still building new weapons. Dr. Karen Foster was working on something special in her laboratory. She was a marine biologist, someone who studied ocean life. Now she was trying to create weapons from Earth's bacteria and viruses. "The aliens have never been exposed to Earth diseases," she explained to her team. "Their bodies will not know how to fight our germs." Time was running out. The Cathari fleet was getting closer every minute. Human ships were moving into position. Families on Earth were saying goodbye to their loved ones in the military. Everyone knew this might be the last normal day in human history. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the enemy fleet approach. His hands were steady, but his heart was beating fast. In a few hours, the biggest space battle in human history would begin. The Cathari thought they were coming to conquer another weak species. They had no idea they were about to fight the most dangerous predator in the galaxy. They were about to learn why humans had conquered their own planet, survived ice ages, and reached for the stars. The war for Earth was about to begin. The first shots of the war began at exactly 6 in the morning, Earth time. The Cathari fleet opened fire with thousands of energy weapons. Bright beams of death crossed the empty space between the fleets. The aliens expected the humans to run away or surrender immediately. They were wrong. Captain Jake Morrison gripped the arms of his command chair as his ship shook from enemy fire. "All ships, execute Battle Plan Alpha. Show them what humans can do when we fight together." The human fleet did something the Cathari had never seen before. Instead of forming a straight battle line like every other species, the human ships scattered in all directions. Some went up, some went down, some went sideways. It looked like chaos, but it was actually a carefully planned strategy. Commander Ryan Brooks led his fighter squadron straight into the enemy fleet. His small ship was faster than anything the aliens had. "Razor Squadron, remember your training. Hit the big ships where they cannot shoot back." The Cathari had never fought against small fighter ships before. Their weapons were designed to destroy big warships, not tiny fast targets. Ryan's fighters flew between the huge alien ships like angry wasps, firing at weak spots the aliens had never needed to protect. "Direct hit on their command ship," reported pilot Danny Garcia over the radio. His fighter was damaged but still flying. "Their bridge is on fire." Admiral Zekthara watched in shock as human fighters swarmed around his fleet. "How are these primitive ships getting through our defenses?" he demanded. His weapons officer was sweating. "Sir, they are too small and too fast. Our guns cannot track them properly." Captain Maria Santos commanded the human destroyer Vigilant. She had been in the Space Navy for 15 years and had never seen combat like this. "All weapons, target their engine sections. If we cannot destroy them, we can slow them down." The human ships used every trick they could think of. They hid behind asteroids and fired surprise attacks. They used the moon's gravity to swing around and hit the aliens from unexpected angles. They even crashed damaged ships into enemy vessels. When their weapons stopped working, Lieutenant Amy Carter was monitoring all the radio channels on Jake's ship. "Captain, we are getting reports from all over the fleet. The enemy has lost over 100 ships in the first hour." Jake could not believe it. The Cathari were supposed to be the greatest military force in the galaxy, but they fought like they were used to easy victories. They had never faced an enemy that refused to give up. The Cathari had conquered 47 worlds using the same tactics every time. They showed up with overwhelming force, scared the enemy into surrendering, and took over the planet. But humans were different. The more pressure the aliens applied, the harder the humans fought back. Commander Lisa Park was leading the European fleet in a desperate battle against a group of Cathari battleships. Her ship was badly damaged, but she kept fighting. "This is for everyone back home," she said into her radio. "For our children and our future." Her ship exploded in a ball of fire, but not before her final torpedo destroyed 2 alien warships. The sacrifice was not in vain. Her death inspired other human captains to fight even harder. Captain Chun Wei was watching the battle from his position near Earth. "Second Fleet, prepare to engage. The first wave has done their job, now it is our turn." The Cathari were learning that humans did not fight fair. When human ships ran out of ammunition, they rammed into alien vessels. When human weapon systems failed, the crews repaired them while under fire. When human ships were about to explode, they steered toward the enemy and took them down together. Ryan Brooks was on his 4th fighter of the day. His first 3 had been destroyed, but he kept getting new ships and going back into battle. "Command, this is Razor Leader. I am down to my last fighter, but I can still fight." "Negative, Commander," came Jake's voice over the radio. "You have done enough. Return to base." "With respect, sir, the fight is not over yet." Ryan turned his damaged fighter toward the largest Cathari ship he could see. "Tell my wife I love her." His ship exploded against the alien vessel's shield, but the explosion weakened their defenses enough for other human ships to finish the job. By the end of the first day, the Cathari had lost 200 ships. They had never lost so many vessels in a single battle. Admiral Zekthara was beginning to understand that this would not be the easy conquest he had promised his superiors. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the humans are not fighting like any species we have encountered before. They seem to prefer death over surrender." Zekthara studied the battle reports. Human ships that should have retreated kept attacking. Human pilots who should have ejected from damaged fighters stayed and fought to the death. It was impossible to understand. Jake Morrison looked at the tactical display on his bridge. The human fleet had lost 60 ships, but they had hurt the enemy badly. "Signal all remaining ships. We have shown them that Earth will not be taken easily. Tomorrow we show them what happens when you make humans angry." The Cathari fleet regrouped during the night, but they were no longer confident of victory. The humans had proven they could fight. Now the question was whether they could win. Amy Carter was working on damage reports when she noticed something interesting. "Captain, the alien ships are staying farther apart now. I think they are afraid of our ramming attacks." Jake smiled for the first time since the battle began. "Good. Fear is something we can use. Send a message to all human ships. Tell them the enemy is starting to doubt themselves. Now we press our advantage." The first day of the war was over, but the battle for Earth had just begun. On the 3rd day of the war, Admiral Zekthara made a decision that would change everything. His fleet was losing too many ships in space combat. The humans were fighting like nothing he had ever seen before. It was time to try a different approach. "Prepare the ground invasion forces," he ordered his commanders. "If we cannot defeat their fleet, we will attack their planet directly. Once we threaten their homes, they will have to surrender." The Cathari had used this strategy on other worlds before. Most species would give up the moment their homeworld was invaded. But the aliens had not studied human history carefully enough. They did not know what they were about to face. Colonel Danny Wright was deep underground in his command bunker in Colorado when the first alien ships began landing on Earth. His screens showed Cathari dropships touching down in major cities all over the planet. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing. The aliens were everywhere. "Sir, we have reports of enemy landings on all continents," his communication officer reported. "They seem to be targeting population centers." Danny had been preparing for this moment for months. "Send the message to all resistance cells. Operation Homestead is now active. Every city, every town, every farm is now a fortress." The Cathari ground forces had conquered dozens of worlds before. They expected to find scared civilians hiding in their homes. Instead, they found something they had never encountered, an entire planet that refused to give up. In Iowa, Farmer Bill Henderson was loading his old hunting rifle when the first alien soldiers appeared on his property. Bill was 60 years old and had been farming his whole life. He knew every inch of his land better than anyone else. "They want to take my farm," he told his wife Mary as she hid in the basement. "Well, they are going to learn that some things are worth fighting for." Bill had spent weeks preparing for this day. He had buried explosives in his fields and set traps throughout his property. When the Cathari soldiers came marching across his cornfields, they walked straight into a carefully planned ambush. The explosion could be heard for miles. Bill did not survive, but he took 20 alien soldiers with him. More importantly, he had shown other farmers what one determined human could do. Dr. Karen Foster was working frantically in her laboratory when the invasion began. She was a marine biologist who had been studying Earth's bacteria and viruses for the past 6 months. Now her research was about to become a weapon. "The aliens have no immunity to Earth diseases," she explained to her team. "Their bodies have never been exposed to our germs. We can use this against them." Karen had developed a biological weapon that would not kill the Cathari, but would make them very sick. She did not want to commit genocide, but she wanted the aliens to suffer for invading her world. In the cities, the fighting was even more intense. The Cathari expected to find helpless civilians. Instead, they found urban warfare specialists who had turned every building into a death trap. 10-year-old Alex Turner was hiding in his school when alien soldiers entered the building. Alex knew the school better than anyone. He had spent years playing in every hallway and hiding in every closet. Now that knowledge was keeping him alive. Alex used the school's internal communication system to guide human soldiers to the aliens. "They are on the 2nd floor near the library," he whispered into his radio. "There are 6 of them, and they do not know about the back stairs." The human soldiers used Alex's information to ambush the aliens. The boy's quick thinking saved dozens of lives that day. In space, Captain Steve Phillips had taken command of the human fleet after Jake Morrison's ship was destroyed. Steve was younger and less experienced than Jake, but he understood something important about the war. "The aliens are learning to fight like us," he told his officers. "But they are still thinking like conquerors, not survivors. They believe they can win by taking our cities. They do not understand that every human is a soldier now." The breakthrough came when Lieutenant Commander Nina Rodriguez made an important discovery. She was the fleet's computer expert, and she had been studying captured Cathari technology for weeks. "Captain, I found something," Nina reported excitedly. "All their ships are connected by a computer network. They share information instantly, which makes them very efficient, but it also makes them vulnerable." Steve immediately understood what she meant. If we can get into their network, we can turn their own technology against them. Nina had been working with Marcus Bell, a former computer hacker who had joined the Navy when the war started. Together, they had created a virus that could spread through the Cathari network and cause chaos in their fleet. "It will not destroy their ships," Marcus explained, "but it will make their computers malfunction. Their weapons will miss, their engines will stutter, and their communications will fail." The virus was launched that night. Within hours, Cathari ships throughout the fleet began experiencing problems. Some ships lost power completely. Others began firing at their own vessels by mistake. The perfect coordination that had made the aliens so dangerous was falling apart. On the ground, the situation was getting worse for the Cathari every hour. They had expected to fight an army. Instead, they were fighting an entire civilization. Every human they met was ready to fight, and every piece of ground they took came at a terrible cost. The aliens began to realize they had made a terrible mistake. Earth was not like the other worlds they had conquered. These humans would rather die than surrender, and they were making the Cathari pay for every victory. By the end of the third day, Admiral Zekthara was beginning to panic. His fleet was falling apart, his ground forces were trapped in endless urban warfare, and his superiors back home were demanding to know why the conquest was taking so long. For the first time in Cathari history, their mighty war machine was failing. The humans had turned their greatest strength, their unified fleet, into a weakness. Now the hunters were becoming the hunted. By the end of the first week, the Cathari fleet had lost 3,000 ships. Admiral Zekthara could not believe the numbers on his screen. His mighty armada was being destroyed by a single planet. The reports from the ground were even worse. Captain Helen Davis had taken command of the human space fleet after Steve Phillips was wounded in battle. She was the first woman to lead Earth's combined naval forces, and she was determined to make the aliens pay for invading her home. All ships, listen carefully, Helen broadcast to the remaining human vessels. The enemy came here thinking we were prey. Now they are going to learn what it feels like to be hunted. The humans had been studying captured Cathari technology for a week. Their engineers had figured out how to combine alien weapons with human ships. The result was a new type of warship that combined the best of both technologies. Lieutenant Commander Tony Garcia was piloting one of these hybrid fighters. His ship looked like a human vessel, but it carried Cathari energy weapons. "This is better than Christmas morning," he said over the radio. "Now we can hit them with their own guns." The Cathari were learning that humans were the most adaptable species they had ever encountered. While the aliens stuck to their old tactics, the humans constantly changed their strategy. Every day brought new surprises that the Cathari could not predict. That on Earth, the ground war had turned into a nightmare for the invading forces. The Cathari had expected to control the major cities within days. Instead, they found themselves trapped in urban warfare that never ended. General Patricia Moore was coordinating the global defense from her headquarters in Washington. She had been a military strategist for 20 years, but she had never planned a war like this one. "Every street is a battlefield," she explained to her staff. "Every building is a fortress. Every civilian is a potential soldier." The aliens thought they could conquer Earth by taking our cities. They are learning that our cities fight back. The Cathari ground forces were discovering that humans had turned their entire planet into a weapon. In New York, office buildings became sniper nests. In London, the subway tunnels became underground highways for resistance fighters. In Tokyo, even the children knew how to make explosives from household items. Dr. Robert Kim had finally finished his biological weapon project. Working with scientists from around the world, he had created a virus that specifically targeted Cathari. Biology. It would not kill them, but it would make them too sick to fight. "We are not trying to commit genocide," Robert explained to the military commanders. "We want them to go home and tell everyone what happens when you invade Earth." The weapon was deployed through the air and water supply in areas controlled by the Cathari. Within hours, alien soldiers began getting sick. They became dizzy and weak. Many of them could barely stand up, let alone fight. The psychological effect was devastating. The Cathari had always believed they were superior to other species. Now, they were being defeated by tiny germs they could not even see. Their confidence was completely destroyed. Commander Pete Johnson had been a high school history teacher before the war started. Now he was leading a resistance cell in Chicago. His knowledge of military history was helping the humans fight more effectively. The aliens are making the same mistakes that every overconfident army has made throughout history, Pete told his fighters. They think superior technology guarantees victory. They are about to learn that wars are won by the side that wants it more. Pete's group had been using the city's sewer system to move around undetected. They would pop up behind enemy lines, attack Cathari supply convoys, and disappear before reinforcements could arrive. The aliens never knew where the next attack would come from. In space, the tide of battle had completely turned. The human fleet was now hunting the scattered remains of the Cathari armada. Many alien ships were trying to flee back to their home territory, but the humans were not letting them escape easily. Captain Angela White was leading a squadron of human ships in pursuit of a group of fleeing Cathari vessels. "Let some of them go," she ordered her pilots. "We want survivors to carry the message back to their empire." The message was becoming clear to everyone in the galaxy. Earth was not a world that could be conquered. The humans had proven that they would fight to the death to protect their home. Any species that tried to invade would face the same fate as the Cathari. Admiral Zekthara was trapped on his flagship, surrounded by human ships. His once mighty fleet was reduced to scattered groups of damaged vessels. Most of his ground forces were either dead, captured, or too sick to fight. "Sir," his communication officer reported, "we are receiving surrender offers from the human fleet." Zekthara had never surrendered in his entire military career. The Cathari Empire had never been defeated in battle. But he was out of options. His superiors back home were demanding to know why the conquest had failed so completely. "What are their terms?" he asked quietly. The terms were simple but humiliating. The Cathari could leave Earth immediately, but they had to carry a message back to their empire. The message would explain exactly what had happened to the mighty Cathari fleet. On Earth, the resistance fighters were celebrating their first major victories. The aliens were retreating from the cities they had occupied. The sick Cathari soldiers were surrendering in large numbers. Sandra Mitchell was a former Marine colonel who had been fighting in the ruins of Washington, D.C. She had seen her city destroyed, her friends killed, and her country invaded. But she had also seen something amazing, an entire planet that refused to give up. "We did not just defend our world," Sandra told her troops. "We sent a message to the entire galaxy. Earth is not for conquest. Any species that tries will learn why we are the most dangerous predator in the universe." The surviving Cathari ships began leaving Earth's solar system. They carried with them the shocking news that their empire's greatest military force had been defeated by a single world. The recordings of human fighters ramming their ships into alien vessels, of human soldiers fighting with bare hands when their weapons failed, would spread throughout the galaxy. The Battle of Earth was almost over, but its effects would last forever. 3 weeks after the invasion began, only 400 Cathari ships remained in Earth's solar system. Admiral Zekthara sat in his damaged command chair, staring at the destruction around him. His flagship was barely holding together. Most of his crew was dead or wounded. The greatest military force in Cathari history had been crushed by a single planet. Admiral Angela White stood on the bridge of her new flagship, watching the alien vessels try to form up for retreat. She had been promoted after the previous fleet commanders died in battle. Now she was the highest-ranking military officer in the human fleet. "Captain Davis, signal the alien fleet," Angela ordered. "Tell them we will accept their surrender, but only on one condition." The condition was simple but important. Every Cathari ship that left Earth's solar system had to carry a message back to their empire. The message would tell the entire galaxy what had happened here. It would explain why 5,000 ships had been reduced to 400. Commander Pete Johnson was working on the message in his temporary office in ruined Chicago. Before the war, he had been teaching history to teenagers. Now he was writing history himself. "The message has to be clear. Pete explained to Angela over the radio. Every species in the galaxy needs to understand what happens when you attack Earth. Pete wrote carefully. He wanted the words to be simple but powerful. The message had to explain not just what happened, but why it happened. The galaxy needed to understand that humans were different from every other species the Kethari had. Conquered. You sent 5,000 ships to conquer one world, the message began. Only 400 are leaving. We are humanity. We are not your prey. We are not your subjects. We are the species that conquered our own world, not through surrender, but through an endless willingness to fight for what we believe in. The message continued with a warning that would echo throughout the galaxy for generations. Tell your empire, tell your allies, tell your enemies, Earth is not for conquest. Any species that tries will learn why we are the only race to split the atom and walk on our moon while still fighting wars with simple weapons. Admiral Zekthara received the message and read it 3 times. He understood that this was more than just a surrender demand. This was humanity announcing itself to the galaxy. The small blue planet was claiming its place among the stars, not through diplomacy, but through pure fighting spirit. Signal the human fleet, Zekthara ordered his communication officer. Tell them we accept their terms. The Kethari ships began their long journey home. Each vessel carried detailed records of the battle. Video recordings showed human fighters ramming damaged ships into alien battleships. Audio files captured the voices of human soldiers fighting with bare hands when their weapons failed. Medical reports documented how an entire planet had refused to surrender even when facing certain death. Dr. Robert Kim was in his laboratory, working on a final project. He was preparing samples of the biological weapons that had made the Kethari ground forces sick. These samples would go with the retreating alien ships as proof of what humans could do when they were pushed too far. I want their scientists to study these, Robert explained to his assistants. I want them to understand that we can create weapons they have never imagined. But more importantly, I want them to know that we chose not to kill them when we could. On Earth, the cleanup was beginning. Cities had to be rebuilt. The dead had to be buried. Families had to mourn their lost loved ones. But there was also celebration. Humanity had won the greatest victory in its history. Sandra Mitchell was standing in what used to be the White House, now mostly rubble. She had been chosen to be Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council. Her job would be to represent humanity when the galaxy finally accepted them as equals. We did not want this war, Sandra said to the reporters gathered around her. But once it started, we fought it the only way we know how, with everything we had. The galaxy will remember what happened here. The surviving Kethari ships finally reached their home territory after months of travel. The news they brought shocked the entire empire. The mighty Kethari fleet had been destroyed by primitive humans. The species that ruled 47 worlds had been defeated by beings who still fought with metal weapons. Admiral Zekthara was arrested as soon as his ship landed. The Kethari High Command blamed him for the disaster. He was stripped of his rank and thrown in prison. But even in his cell, he continued to write reports about the humans. We thought we were hunting sheep, Zekthara wrote in his final report. We found wolves. These humans are unlike any species we have ever encountered. They do not know how to surrender. They do not understand the concept of acceptable losses. Every human is willing to die for their world. The story of Earth's victory spread throughout the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Alien civilizations that had lived in fear of the Kethari suddenly realized that the Empire could be defeated. Other species began to fight back against their Kethari oppressors. Years passed. The galaxy changed. The Kethari Empire collapsed as world after world rebelled against their rule. New alliances formed between species that had once been enemies. And at the center of it all was Earth, the small blue planet that had refused. To be conquered. The Galactic Council finally invited humanity to join as full members. Sandra Mitchell traveled to their headquarters, carrying a small metal plaque. She placed it on her desk where everyone could see it. The plaque read, "They sent 5,000 ships to conquer Earth. Only a few lived to tell the tale." Sandra looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien children were learning about the day the humans fought back. The story would be told for thousands of years, how one small planet changed the entire galaxy. Earth had earned its place among the stars not through superior technology or diplomatic skill, but through the simple truth that some things are worth fighting for. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity, and that respect had been paid for in blood. The message was clear to every species in the galaxy. Earth was humanity's home, and humans would defend it with their lives. Any empire that forgot this lesson would face the same fate as the Cathari fleet. The galaxy remembered, and the galaxy learned.